Hi there, Peppermint Patty group. So welcome back to another guided reading lesson. I love doing these lessons for you guys because I know you all are working so hard. I can see it on all of your stuff that you've been turning in on Seesaw, and I just love getting to teach you guys reading. So thank you all for working hard, and we're going to go ahead and get started with another lesson this week. So this week we're going to do another breaking words lesson. So we're going to work with some bigger words this week with our breaking words, but we're going to do that for word work. And then we're going to read a book called Creepy Crawly Caterpillars. So what do you think? Do you think our book is going to be fiction or nonfiction? What do you think? Creepy Crawly Caterpillars. So we'll find out. But we're going to read that book and we're going to talk about asking questions when we read. So we'll talk more about that later. So let's go ahead and get started. All right, so let's go ahead and start our breaking words lesson. So go ahead and make sure that you have this word made with your letters, but make sure that you have all of your other letters really close by because we're going to be pulling other letters to make our word different and change it and make it bigger. So still have all of your other letters close by for you to grab, but go ahead and just start with this word right here, okay? All right. All right, so let's go ahead and get started. So the first thing we're going to do with our word here is we're going to break it apart at the vowel, just like we did last week with our breaking words lesson. So we're going to look and see, well, first of all, before we even do that, let me backtrack just a little bit. Our hunk and chunk that we're going to be working with today is one that we haven't talked about yet. It's this AI hunk and chunk. And the AI hunk and chunk goes like this. It goes, rain, rain, you're a pain. A-I, A-A-A. And the reason we do this is because it makes that long and strong A sound. Just like when we did the phonics dance alphabet and we went Abby is sad, is A, because that's the long and strong A sound. And that's the same sound that A-I hunk and chunk is going to make. So all of our words today are going to have that A-I hunk and chunk. So you ready to try it with me? All right, let's try it. You ready? Get your finger ready. We're going to point at the rain because we don't like it. You ready? Rain, rain, you're a pain. A-I, A-A-A. Very good. So remember that as we break it apart at the vowel and then we say the two parts. Remember that A-I makes the A sound. So what is the first vowel that we see in our word? The A. Good. So we're going to break it apart at the A, just like we did last week. And then we're going to say the two parts. So you ready? What part does this say? Good, just the P sound. And then this part says ain. Good, so let's say that again. You ready? So you point to it. Don't just watch me. I want you right in front of you where you've got your letters. I want you to point to the parts as you say them, just like I'm doing right here, okay? So don't just watch me. I want you to do it too. You ready? Ain. Good. Now put it back together. And then read it. What's that word? Pain. Good. All right. So now what I want you to do is I want you to find the letter that you would need to make the word plain. Plain. So what letter do you think you would need to make the word plain? And where do you think it would go? Remember, if you ever need to, just pause the video and you can always start it back up if you need more time. All right, so hopefully you picked up the L because we hear that L sound and we're gonna put it right after that P, plain. Kind of already did that part for you. All right, so let's do it together. So let's break it apart at the vowel. So we're gonna break it apart at the A, that's our first vowel that we see. And then you take your finger just like I am and point to the PL. You ready? Let's say the parts together. You ready? Plain. Do it again. You ready? Plain. Good. Now, let's put it back together and let's say it. You ready? Plain. Good. And don't forget, take your finger and finger sweep under it. That's what I like to call that, finger sweep. So you're reading that word, okay? All right, so now I want you to see if you can add two letters to our word to make the word plainer. Plainer. So what two letters do you think you would need to make that plain-er, that sound at the end? And I'll give you a hint. It's a hunk and chunk that we just learned last week. Remember, pause the video if you need more time. All right, so hopefully you remember that ER at the end of a word, just like in the word plain, that ER at the end of the word. So now we're gonna break it apart at the first vowel. Now we see other vowels in our word, but we're gonna break it apart at the first vowel that we see, which is what? The A, good. So let's do that, let's break it apart. And then what we're going to do is we're going to break it apart again. We're going to break it apart at the ending sound that we hear, that first vowel that we see at that ending sound. So we're going to break that ER off at the end. So go ahead and make sure you have that. Make sure you broke it apart. All right, and now we're going to take our finger, you do it too, and we're going to say each part. You ready? Pl, ain, Do it again. You ready? Pl, ain, All right, now put it back together. You ready? And say it. Plainer. Good. Very good. All right, so now I want you to see if you can switch out 2 letters to make the word trainer. Trainer. Now, it sounds a little different because it sounds like I'm saying that CH sound, but it's not the CH. It's trainer. We say it like the CH sound, and we've talked a little bit about that, but that's just because that's the way we talk. We just make that sound, but it's not CH. Listen, trainer, trainer. So what 2 letters would you need at the beginning? Remember, pause the video if you need to. All right. So go ahead and show me what 2 letters would make that sound. Good. Hopefully you said the TR. Now Miss Vale forgot to get a second R out. So I've got all my letters right here, and I'm going to get those out so I can make sure that I have that second R, because I need 2 of them for that beginning. All right, so make sure you have that too. If you don't, pause the video and then you can start it back up. All right, so let's break our word apart. We're gonna break it apart in 2 different spots. We're gonna break it apart at that first vowel that we see, and then we're gonna break it apart at that, not the next vowel that we see, because remember, that's a hunk and chunk. We're not gonna break that apart, but we're gonna break it apart at the next vowel that we see. So you ready? So break it. So go ahead and make sure you broke it just like I did into our 3 different parts. And then let's take our finger and let's say those parts. You ready? Ain, Good, let's do that again. You ready? Ain, Now let's put it back together. Go ahead and put it back together. And then let's finger sweep and say it. We're gonna read it. You ready? Trainer. Very good, you guys. All right, now I want you to see what letter can you add. Add 1 letter to make the word strainer. Strainer, like what you would use if you were trying to get water out of food. You would put the food in the strainer and the water would come out of the bottom. So strainer. Remember, pause the video if you need to. All right, so hopefully you heard that S sound at the beginning. So now we're going to break it just like we've done before. We're going to break it at the first vowel, and then that, not the second vowel that we see, because we don't want to break up that hunk and chunk. We're going to break it at that ending vowel that we see. So you ready? So break it. Just like that. And then we're going to take our finger and we're going to say the parts. You ready? Ain, Do it again. You ready? Ain, Very good. So let's put it back together. And then we're going to finger sweep and we're going to say it and read it. You ready? Strainer. Very good, you guys. All right, so last thing we're going to do is I'm going to write a word on the board. This time, I do not want you to make the word, okay? So in fact, if you want to take a second and get all of these letters out of the way, you can do that. Miss Belle's going to do that too, because I don't want to get confused with my word that I'm about ready to write and to read. So don't make this word with your letters. All I want you to do is in your mind, when I write it, I want you to see if you can find the parts. Just like we broke apart the other words, I want you in your mind to kind of break apart this word to see if you can stretch it out and figure out what this word is, okay? You ready? All right, so take a second in your mind, kind of break apart the word to see if you can stretch it out and figure it out. All right, you ready? So what word is this? Read it. Sprained. Very good. We see the and. And even though we didn't practice that ed ending, we still want to recognize that at the end as a separate part of the word. That's where we would break apart that ending part to the word. So even though it's different, it's not ER, it's still the same ending part that we want to break apart. So very good, you guys. So we are all finished with our breaking words lesson. I don't know about you guys, but I really, really like doing these breaking words lessons because I feel like they really help us with these bigger words, because you guys are really getting to some bigger words that you're reading. It's going to help you kind of break the word apart and see the different parts to help you stretch it out. Okay? Because you all are kind of past the point of stretching out every little sound. You really want to look at the chunks, the hunks and chunks, and the parts of the word when you stretch it out. So great job, and let's go ahead and take a quick little break before we read our book. All right, so before we actually read our book, we're going to talk about asking questions. And strong readers will ask questions when they read. And the reason we want to ask questions while we read is because it's going to help you make predictions when you read, so make really good guesses as to what's going to happen next. It'll help you learn something, and it'll just help you understand what you're reading even better. So what you guys are going to do today, as you're reading the text or the book, you're going to pick 2 pages that you can stop, and you can think about what kind of question do you have after reading that page. So what I want you to do is I want you to see if you can come up with a question that would start with this question word, the question word why. And I'll give you an example of what that might look like in a few minutes. But I want you to really be focusing on what questions do you have and what why questions do you have as you read the book, because you're going to pick 2 pages to ask a question that would start with that word why, okay? So don't forget to do that, and then I'll give you an example in just a few minutes. All right, so our book is called Creepy Crawly Caterpillars, and this is an informational book that's going to tell us a lot about caterpillars. And a caterpillar is just a baby butterfly or moth. So we're going to learn more about caterpillars as we read our text. So let's go ahead and take a look at a text feature that hopefully you kind of recognize from other books that we've read. So do you guys remember what this text feature is called? A table of contents. Yeah, and if you didn't know that and didn't remember it, that's okay. That's why we're talking about it. So remember, this is a text feature that we see in informational books. So that means that if I wanted to know where something was in our story or in our text, then I could come to the table of contents and it's going to tell me exactly what page I can find that information on. Because remember, a nonfiction or informational text, I don't have to read in order. If I just wanted to know about one specific thing, I could flip to that page, even if it's all the way in the back of the book, and then go back and read the beginning, and it's still going to make sense. I don't have to read it in order. So a table of contents is going to help me find things a lot faster. And that's the whole point of text features, is that it really helps you when you're reading the text. So remember, what is this called? A table of contents. Very good. So remember, before we read the book, we talked about how strong readers ask questions as they read. And I gave you the challenge that I wanted you to pick 2 pages that you could think of a question that would start with that question word, why. And so let me give you a good example. After I read pages 2 and 3, the question that I think of is, why do caterpillars lay eggs on leaves? So why do they do that? Why is my question word, and I'm asking a question about what I just read, and that's going to help me kind of predict what's going to happen next. It's going to help me understand my story a little bit better, my text, and it's going to help me learn more information. So see if you can, as you're reading, maybe it's on these 2 pages, maybe it's on pages that you read in just a few minutes, but see if you can come up with 2 why questions, because that's what you're going to do when you go back to Seesaw. All right, so does anybody notice a text feature that we've talked about? I think just maybe once before, but does anybody see a word that looks a little different than the rest of the words on the page? Hopefully you see that word prolegs, and prolegs is in bold print. So that's what we call that text feature. And that's just because it's bold. That means it stands out compared to everything else on that page. And that must mean that that word is really important. So not only does it tell us that the word is important, but it also tells us that usually in an informational or nonfiction book, that you can flip back to the glossary and you can find out what that word means. So if you read this page and you were like, I don't know what the word prolegs means, well then you could flip back to the glossary and it would tell you exactly what that means. And then it helps you understand the story better, which is exactly why we have text features. It helps us understand all of that information a little bit better. So I want you to take a look at the picture. And I want you to either think about it, or if there's somebody close by that you could pause the video and go show them and tell them the answer, then I want you to do that too, okay? But take a look at the picture, and I want to know, what did you learn about prolegs? And where else could you look to find more details about prolegs? So either think about it or pause the video and go tell somebody close by, where could you find more details about prolegs? All right, so I know we talked back at the beginning of the year about different strategies that you can use if you get stuck on a word and you don't know what the word says, you don't know how to read it. But I also want you to know that you can use some of those strategies to help you understand what a word means too. So sometimes you may be able to read the word, but you may not know what it means. So for example, when I look at this page on page 14, I see the word sheds. And I know it's important because it's in bold print, but I'm not really sure. I can read it. I know it says sheds, but I don't really know what that means. I don't know what sheds means. And so I can use the strategy Eagle Eye to help me understand what that word means. Yes, you can use Eagle Eye to help you stretch out the word and figure out what that word says, but you can also use Eagle Eye to figure out what that word means. So when I look at the picture, well, what do you think the word sheds means if you look at the picture? It says when it gets too big, it sheds its skin. So looking at the picture, that makes me think that the skin actually comes off of the caterpillar. That's what the word sheds means, is that the skin comes off. So the picture, Eagle Eye, helped me not only know what that word says, but it helped me understand what that word meant too. So don't forget to always use that picture to help you understand what the words mean, because if you don't understand what the words mean, then there's no point in reading. You have to understand what you're reading. So don't forget to use that Eagle Eye and always use the picture to help you understand what you're reading. All right, so two last text features that I want to point out are right on this last page. There's two of them. The first one we've talked about, the glossary. So what you see on the top, that is where you can go, and if you find a word that you don't know what it means, then you can flip back to the glossary and it'll tell you what that word means. So for example, the word prolegs, we talked about that earlier, and if we didn't know what that word meant, well then not only could we use the picture to help us, but we can flip back to the glossary to help us understand what prolegs are. The second text feature that we see that we haven't talked about yet is at the bottom, and it's called an index. And an index is a really cool text feature that will help you if you want to flip to a certain page to read about something. So for example, if I look at the index down at the bottom of this page and say I wanted to learn all about the abdomen, this is the abdomen of the caterpillar, the middle part. And I wanted to read all about the abdomen, but I didn't want to have to search and find where they talked about it. Well, I can flip back to the index and it'll tell me what pages to find that on. So if I look, abdomen is that very first word that starts with an A, and it has the number 4 next to it. So that means if I flip to page 4, it's going to tell me all about the abdomen. And that way it just makes it quick and easy, and I don't have to flip all through the book to find out where I can learn more information about the abdomen. So indexes are really cool because they help you be able to find information a little bit easier and a little bit faster. So now what you guys are going to do is you're going to go back to Seesaw, and hopefully as you were reading, you stopped. And if you didn't, go back and see if you can find some pages that you can ask some questions about. But hopefully you stopped and you thought on 2 pages of some questions that you had about what you read. And remember, I want them to start with the question word why. So think about what kind of question can you come up with that would start with that word why. And then you're going to turn that to me on Seesaw. So I hope you guys enjoyed our book, and I can't wait to see what kind of questions you guys come up with. You all are such strong readers, and I know you guys will come up with some great questions. Good job this week.